Some of you out there prefer my shorter intros and my shorter videos. If you feel that way, this video is just for you. See this spider tournament that is part of the Feyhammer Titan event? It's going to be one of the easiest tournaments you ever complete here in Raid, and in today's video, I'm going to show you why. I am Colred, this is Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. Let's get started quickly. It is the month of September here at Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends, and we have reached our initial goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of this month. A big thank you to all of our new subscribers, but also all of our old subscribers, because every single one of you is counted in that 10K. However, we're going to keep it rolling and see how high we can push this before the end of the month. So our new goal is 10,500, and if we hit that, we'll up it again. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and as always, smash that like button and consider joining our Discord community. Thanks so much for all of your support of our channel. Now let's get back to your video. For the sake of this video, I'm going to assume you have your Thor Feyhammer already, because we just had the fusion. This spider tournament is part of the Titan event for Thor Solos. But if you don't have your Thor Feyhammer, don't worry, I've still got you covered. There's some good information in this video. Plus, you probably have Loki. Now, Loki's not nearly as good as Thor is at Spider's Den, but he is going to help some players, and I'm going to show you why. This is the Spider's Den loot table and drop rate chart. It's been around for ages here in Raid Shadow Legends. And as you can see, there's something a little bit weird about Stage 10. There's a really high rate of 5-star drops here for Stage 10, way higher than any other stage on the board. And that results in a very efficient return for tournament points. So on the very bottom row here, this is the number of points you get per energy on average for these stages. And as you can see here, Stage 10 returns more than 1 tournament point per energy spent. Now, there are only 4 other stages that do this, and they start at Stage 20. So Stage 20, 22, 23, and 24 are all over 1 tournament point per energy. You can see that Stage 20 is the most efficient. That's why we usually farm Stage 20s for dungeon tournaments. But here for the Spider's Den, Stage 10 is super, super efficient. So if you can't do Stage 20, Stage 10 is a really good alternative. It's actually the 3rd most efficient stage out of all 25. It's going to get you some good 5-star drops or some good silver, and it's going to allow you to do this relatively quickly and easily. So I'm going to jump into game. We're going to show you Stage 10, but we're also going to show you some higher stages depending on where you want to farm, including some hard mode stages. Okay, here we are on Stage 10 of normal mode. And if you have Thor, you definitely want to use him here. But to start off, for those of you who don't have Thor, you can use Loki here. Now, Loki is a support champion. He's also weak affinity. This will not be a fast clear, but Loki can actually solo this if you build him the right way. I'm going to show you a build that I've got for Loki right now that will solo Stage 10. As you can see, he is in Cruel, in crit damage, and in speed. I put him all in 5-star gear because I didn't want to ramp his stats up too high, but I will show you his stats for Spider's Den. He's running 53,000 HP. This is a little bit higher than is probably necessary. He does pretty well, but I would say you don't want to drop too much below this. So maybe 45K as a minimum. 3,600 attack, 3,800 defense. Speed is 225. Crit damage is 211 with 100% crit rate. You need 100% crit rate. And then he has enough resistance. You don't need this much, but he has enough resistance to resist every single debuff. And that's going to be important. And then he has enough accuracy to land his turn meter decrease, which is also important. Again, you don't need this much accuracy. Probably like 150 is enough. And with resistance, probably 150 is enough there as well. I also don't think you need quite this much defense. But again, he doesn't have any sustain here. We are going to turn off his A2. And as a result, he needs to just be tanky enough to withstand the hits, because he will get hit from the boss and the spiderlings. Now, you could probably drop these stats a bit by putting him in lifesteal gear. You could drop all of the stats, in fact. You could drop his HP, his defense, his attack, his crit damage by putting him in lifesteal or bloodthirst or like regeneration and immortal if you have enough damage. But you do have to remember that the spider boss heals herself. So you have to outpace her healing. And every time she heals herself, she also ramps up her attack. So you don't want to drop your damage too much, but you could potentially increase his survivability without having all of these stats. So that's something you can experiment with. Again, these are decent stats. I would say they're pretty good stats. Probably somebody in the advanced mid game is going to be able to do this. If you are earlier than that, I would definitely suggest lifesteal or regeneration or something like that, because that's going to give you the best chance. And remember, he doesn't have to solo this. You've got a free high Katoon. You could throw that. That's going to her in there. That's going to speed things up. If you have any other barbarian champions, especially any damage dealer, somebody who brings a decreased defense or a weaken, bring those champions as well, especially if you have a Scylla the Drakes. If you've gotten to 180 days, you should have no problem totally crushing stage 10. But Loki can solo it if you have decent gear. So I will put him in here. And again, we want to see that, his A2 is turned off. We want him to open with his A3. Actually, do we? I think we do. We want him to open with his A3 because this gives him an increased attack. So sometimes he's going to land the decreased turn meter on the boss. Sometimes he won't. He hits spiderlings a lot. If you know how he chooses his targeting, please let me know, because I can't figure it out. It doesn't seem to be the champion or the enemy with the highest turn meter. And it doesn't seem to be the enemy with the lowest HP. It's just kind of a random enemy. If there aren't that many spiderlings, it will almost certainly hit the boss. But if there's a whole bunch of spiderlings, it always hits a spiderling. So you tell me how it works in the comments, please, because I don't know. But as you can see, he does a decent amount of damage to clear out the waves. He is damaging the boss more than the boss is healing. And occasionally he lands that turn meter decrease on the boss. Plus he puts that increased attack on himself. It's up for 2 turns out of 4 turns. And that helps a lot in terms of speeding up the run. Now, I didn't show you his masteries, but he's in the defense and support trees. So if you put him in the offense tree, that would certainly speed up the run. And maybe if you're running him in Hydra, you want him in offense tree anyway. I don't know. I'm running him in defense and support, and so it's not going to be a fast run. You can go ahead and watch the rest of it, and I will meet you on the other side. Okay, so as you can see, soloed by Loki, 3-minute clear. Takes a while. Again, throw in High Katoon, throw in some other barbarians. You're going to speed this up quite a bit, but Loki can do it. So if you have Loki and you have decent gear, you should be all set. But we are not here today to talk about Loki. We're here to talk about Thor. So I have put Thor in. Now, one thing you should know about his AI is that he, oddly enough, chooses to open with his A2. His A1 is the self-buffing skill. So you want to change this and make this the priority for this particular fight. Now, I'll show you his build in just a minute, but let's watch how Thor does compared to Loki. Spiderlings spawn, spiderlings die, they spawn again, they die again, and now the boss is down. 7 seconds, 2 turns. Now you saw 3 hits, but remember that the 3rd hit is his passive, and that doesn't technically count as a turn. So this is only 2 turns. And there we go, get our points in 7 seconds. So if you have Thor, I highly recommend you put him in here. Again, you could definitely put him in with food. That's not going to be a problem here at stage 10. Let him run. He'll clear this entire tournament for you in like half an hour. It'll be so fast. Literally the fastest spider tournament that you've ever done. I've tried other champions to match this speed at stage 10. I have found not one champion in my roster that can do it. Granted, I didn't try every champion in my roster. I tried about 7 champions, but not one other champion does this fight this fast. This is absolutely fantastic. Unless you manual, because Newt can do it in 1 shot. Here is my Thor's build. You can see he is in lifesteal and in speed. Now, he needs lifesteal because in the upper difficulty, in terms of stages, he's going to have to sustain himself if he solos. Now, you could potentially put him in a regeneration set if you had enough damage in a regeneration set. I have chosen lifesteal. This is not my best gear. This is also not the set I'm normally running him in. But I wanted to show that you could do this and you could solo a very high stage with Thor in a build like this. So let me show you his masteries. You can see he is in Helm Smasher. He is a wave clearing champion. So whether it's PvP or PvE, you want him in Helm Smasher. You could potentially speed up like PvP stuff with War Master, but in general, he's not really built to kill bosses. So you want him in Helm Smasher. He's going to nuke out spiderlings. He's going to nuke out your enemies in PvP. He's going to be very strong. I don't think you want him in a lifesteal set for PvP. You should certainly go with a more damage set. But for this particular purpose, if you want to use him as a solo spider champion, I think you want him in lifesteal gear. Let's show you the stats. I'm running 42k HP. This is low. This is the one stat I wish I had more of. I would probably like around 50,000 HP. Even 45 would give me a little bit more comfort, because I think while I'm farming some stages at 100%, the other stages are probably losing because he doesn't have enough HP. Now, he has over 6k attack. I think for stage 20, you could probably drop this down to about 5k and you'd be fine. Defense is 2,700, which is all right. I wouldn't mind a little bit more. 261 is a really nice speed. The speed on Spider is weird. It doesn't have to be high or low. It just has to fit properly into the rhythm of the spider fight. So I've done this successfully at like 221 speed. I've done it unsuccessfully at like 244. And then I did it great at like 257 to 261. So it's like, it doesn't really matter exactly how fast you go. It's just that you have to be in the rhythm of the spider fight. So you're going to have to experiment with your speed a little bit, but this seems to work really well for most of the upper stages that I'm going to be doing. Now, as you can see, 100% crit rate. I would love to get this down to 100% crit rate, but my lifesteal gear is weird and it has a lot of crit rate. 253% crit damage. I could certainly use a little bit more. That would help speed up the fights and make sure that I'm always one-shotting the waves, because sometimes one spiderling survives, and that's a little bit frustrating. No resistance here, really, like not enough resistance to matter. So you could run him in resistance, and then you would probably increase your success chance as well, because one of the times he might fail is if he gets CC'd. You do need the accuracy to land his debuffs. He lands an AoE slow, and he lands an AoE stun. At least I do, because I am using the Nature's Wrath blessing. You can see I have a 3-star blessing, and this increases the damage inflicted by Thor for every debuff he places, up to 8%. So when I get to the 5-star solo, I'll probably swap this out for something else. But for right now, Nature's Wrath seems to be a really good option at 3 stars. So what's next? Where do we go after stage 10? Well, I think the obvious answer would be stage 20. Here's the thing about stage 20. Thor can solo it, no problem. In fact, this build is 100% as far as I've seen at stage 20. But it takes about 4.5 to 5 minutes to clear stage 20. Now, you can run him in stage 20 with food, but recognize that when you put food into a team, that changes the way the turn meter flows, and so it could potentially throw him off here at stage 20. I actually ran him with food when I was running him at like 255 or something, and it didn't quite work. I don't know about 261. I haven't tried it, so you can go ahead and try it. Like I said, you might have to slow him down a little bit or speed him up a little bit to make sure that he's in the rhythm properly. Once the food dies, it's not really an issue, but sometimes the food doesn't die for a little while because he is clearing so many spiderlings out. So it kind of depends where he falls. The big issue is if he gets CC'd. If he gets CC'd, that's when he's most likely to die. So if you have resistance, then food would be no problem. Now, he also can clear stage 24, but he can't solo it in this build. He's been able to duo it both with High Katoon and with Sill of the Drakes. So if you have one of those 2 free champions, this build should be able to work depending on the speeds that you have on those champions and the stats you have there. However, I don't actually think we should be farming stage 20 or stage 24 with Thor. Like, certainly you could, but he's not a boss killer. That's why it's so slow, right? You should use other teams to clear these stages. I will say this, though. He's awesome at clearing spiderlings. So if you think about hard mode Spider takes damage when her spiderlings die, and Thor clears out spiderlings really well. So I actually think you should skip stage 20 and stage 24. If you can get into hard mode, get into hard mode. Now, stage 1 is going to be easier than stage 24 by a long way, right? Now, this is also going to be a weak affinity to Thor. Thor will be strong affinity. He's magic affinity. So if you can do stage 1, do stage 1 instead of stage 24. Do it instead of stage 20. It's not really as efficient as stage 20, but the drops are going to be better, and it's going to be a lot faster in terms of runs. I'm actually going to farm stage 5 here. You could certainly farm stage 2 or 3. I would skip 4 because Thor is weak affinity. Stage 5 or stage 6. Honestly, 6 is where the stats start to really ramp up. So even if you do have the stats on your Thor to farm these stages, they're probably going to be slower and riskier. I could not solo up here. I have to have a full team, and honestly, my Thor isn't tanky enough. He dies, so if I don't have a reviver, it's not going to work. Okay, so now we're going to jump into stage 5 of hard mode. The AI is exactly the same. The build is as I showed you. Now, this is not 100% chance. Sometimes it fails. It seems to fail probably around 10 or 15% of the time with the build I currently have. And it's not necessarily a matter of speed. I think it's more a matter of damage, because sometimes he doesn't nuke out all of the waves. And you're like, why does that matter? Well, his passive is based on how many enemies he hits. It fires when he hits 10 enemies. And if he leaves some enemies alive, he might hit more targets on the next wave, and that would change where his passive fires. So as you can see, we got an extra spiderling that survived there. In addition, the boss, if the boss consumes spiderlings, does different things than if there are no spiderlings up there. So sometimes the boss fires a different skill, sometimes his AoE fires at a different time, his passive AoE, and as a result, there's a little bit of uncertainty here. Now, if you had Loki, you could probably put Loki in with Thor, and you would clear this Spider's Den stage 5 at 100%. So if you have Loki, just make sure to turn on his A2, because his A2 actually heals. He will probably be the spiderling target because Thor is strong affinity, but Loki is neutral affinity. So let's check out our win here. We're going to sell that. So if you have both of those champions, then you could certainly have a very nice duo here for stage 5. But I can't go much higher than this with the stats that I have. You may be able to if your build for Thor is better. Or like if you have the 4-star soul, this is probably a piece of cake. Okay, so that is it for me today. That's what counts as a short video here from Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below if this has helped you figure out how to best clear this spider tournament. If not, maybe let me know what team you're running instead. Thanks so much for hanging out. I have been Colred, and I will see you in another video soon.